Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Tuesday Pulse AI. Today, I want to cover AI for the not so technical. These are the leaders who may have heard about AI but really don't have a full understanding of what it really is. This is AI for the non-technical. This is for people who lead teams but not systems. We're not here to turn anybody into an engineer. It's not going to be a prompt engineering. It's just giving people a way to think clearly about AI so they can make better decisions and avoid costly mistakes. So this is not a tools demo, even though I will show you the difference between Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude with the same instructions and just see what their outputs say because they have been trained differently. And so it's not about automation training. There's no hyper fluff. This is just no shortcuts. These tools change all the time. They're constantly updated, but mental models, as long as you understand how to use them and when to use them, that will stay the same. So it's understanding how AI behaves in business contexts so you can stop outsourcing your judgment to technology that you don't fully understand. So why is AI adoption stalling? And mainly because of these three things. There's confusion, there's laziness, and there's fear, but not laziness, and there's pressure. So most AI initiatives stall because the leaders are uncertain. And that uncertainty leaks into whether it's communications, rollouts, or expectations. These teams feel it, and if there's hesitation, resistance, or unsurety, people will have quiet workarounds and not implement what leadership wants them to do. So leaders should not ignore these things at how resistance shows up. It's people, they're biased and they actively undermine AI, whether they realize they're doing it or not. So people still keep spreadsheets. They don't trust outputs of AI. They may say, we've tried AI and it didn't work. It's not a rebellion. It's just because it's self-preservation. People are used to what they've always done. And if they're not given the clarity and the guidance of how to use the new technology, they're going to be reluctant to use it and put up a resistance. So what generative AI actually does is it is predicting the next words. It's like a really super smart spell check that is just based on what it's been trained. It does all this mathematical computations about what is the most likely word that should follow something. So it's based on patterns. It doesn't have reasoning. It doesn't understand consequences. It does not know your business. It's been trained on various forms of information. Different LLMs have different trainings, and each of them can be personalized to your instructions. And so they reflect you get what you ask for. Again, there's no thinking, there's no reasoning, there's no understanding. It's just following patterns and predicting what will come next in a very confident manner. So what is AI good for and what's it not good for? It's great at drafting. It's summarizing. It's finding trends in data. It's an accelerator and not a decider. It shines with speed, volume, and synthesis. What it fails at is judgment. It can't make nuanced decisions. It has no empathy, no experience, no understanding of human context. There's no accountability. If you tell AI to do something, you have to have a human be accountable for the outcomes. So they have to validate what AI is telling them. And there's no self-awareness. It doesn't know when it's wrong, and it's confidently wrong and it doesn't know because you're not giving it the guidelines to follow. So you may get burned. And there's a lot of instances where they trust AI and they shouldn't. So there's 5 truths about AI, and I'll get into each of these, but there's AI amplifies. Whatever you give it, it just amplifies that. So if it's clear, it's going to give you clear decisions and outputs. And if you give it confusion, it's going to give you confused outputs. It has no accountability or ownership. There's no intent there. It reflects what you put in. And so again, the more context, the more instructions, the more rules, the more format, ideas, your results are going to reflect that. Um, it requires intentional structure. And in previous episodes or issues of this podcast or this webinar, I've talked about using things like the create method, which is context, roles, um, experiences, tone, audiences. There's just a lot of different things that the more you give it, the better results you get. And you should always realize that you can iterate. Ask it more, follow up, and keep iterating until you get the answers that you're really looking for. And then there's real risk because it's not the technology, it's people understanding or assuming that AI has the right answer. And again, without that human overview, there is that risk of putting out the wrong ideas, or it could harm your business, it could harm your reputation, it could come into legal matters, harm your finances. There's a lot of real risk with just assuming that the answers are correct. So again, AI doesn't create clarity. If you give it vague input, you're going to get vague output. So if somebody says AI gave us garbage, that means because we entered in garbage. So this is not this is leadership and not technical. So the more you tell it what to do, you still have to have that human strategy. So it's going to mirror what you give it. Ambiguity results in ambiguity. AI has no accountability, so it can't explain the trade-offs. A human has to own the outcomes. It doesn't understand the consequences. Again, it can't take responsibility when it's wrong, and oftentimes it's very confident in giving a wrong answer. So it can't explain itself to a customer or a regulator or an employee. Someone has to own it. Somebody has to program it. Somebody has to give it those rules and guidelines. And then it's up to leadership to provide that guidance. So again, garbage in is still applies. If you have insufficient prompting, insufficient information, poor context, you're going to get bad outputs. So AI fills in gaps, and it's very plausible. They're very confident about what they're telling you, and they don't tell you it's a fabrication. They're making things up until you or unless you say, provide the citations of where you got this information. Do not make things up. If you don't know an answer, don't make something up. Tell me you don't know. You have to explicitly give those type of instructions to your context in your prompting. So silence becomes instruction. If you don't tell it what you don't want, then it may give you what you don't want without explicitly telling you not to. Number 4 is reliability is a design problem. So structure always beats talent. So again, going back to structured prompting, giving it consistent context, roles, audiences, actions, tone, formats of what you want, you don't want. Give it checkpoints. Again, structuring instead of just coming up with prompts on the fly, you'll always get a better result with structure. And again, processes, if you consistently do the same thing, you create a really good prompt, continue to use that, reuse, reiterate, modify, but always keep that structure in place. And here's one of the real risks is the danger is not in AI replacing jobs. It's understanding the people and how their relationship to the AI is. If you fear job displacement or the models are going to fail or there's going to be security, those are good things to fear. And again, trusting it blindly without that judgment or verification can lead to risk and failure. So job displacement may not be a biggest fear for leaders, but it is a fear for employees who fear that their job is going to be replaced by an AI agent. So what must stay human? Human always has to be in the loop. So from strategy, direction, and vision, It's the leaders who have that experience, knowledge, understanding of their industry, understanding of their business, understanding of their clients. The ethics, what are your leadership values and principles, and how are they applied to how AI is being used? The final judgment, making those critical decisions. You can't rely on AI to make those decisions for you. A leader has to own those decisions and make the final call. And in relationships, the communication, you have to have the human to human relationships and those communications. So AI can't replace leadership. It creates a space for it, and it just opens new opportunities to focus on different concepts like the strategy, ethics, and relationships and judgment. So, decisions that AI can support. AI should give you options, drafts, perspectives, and a human decides. When AI becomes the decider, accountability collapses. And so you have to, it's great at taking multiple sources and giving you insights on those sources. Then something like Notebook LM is really great for that. Drafting is what most people, a lot of the AI slop comes out is because people are treating the output as a final and not as a draft. And so they're just accepting what comes out of AI and posting it to something and expecting that to be true instead of looking at what it put out, doing human drafting, getting an update to that, using AI to improve upon that, whether it's wording or context, and then going back in and doing a final edit from a human and publishing it, because you're judging that, you're determining, making that decision that that's the final output, and you're not relying on AI to do that. And so, again, it's good at exploring the what ifs, the ideation, the give me an example. Those type are great for helping AI make decisions, but you shouldn't rely on the final decision. Ownership is a big responsibility. And ownership is only possible if you know what your inputs are, you have the defined outputs that you want, and you have a human review. Efficiency lives here without eroding the trust. And so it's appropriate for automating things. If there's a repetitive documented work that you can say that this is the way we do things, and now we can say AI can do these things that are so repetitive we don't need a human to do, but you still have to have a review of the final output. It's great for structuring summaries, and it's great for doing your first pass, your drafting. But again, oversight and validation are extremely important if you want to build trust around your AI systems. So, a lot of problems are coming in right now with vendors proposing solutions without truly understanding what the problem is that they're trying to solve. And so they'll go in and they'll give a great demo, and the demos sound very plausible, but it's in a controlled environment, and it's not dealing with real data. It's not dealing with real situations, humans, workplaces. There's a lot of things. And so when the human work disappears, can this vendor be specific about the time savings? What's going to be eliminated? What tasks will be improved upon? Will they understand what the failure is and downstream impact? What happens if something breaks? What goes wrong? Is there going to be rollback? What does success look like? Are we looking at 30 days, 60 days? Are there measurable outcomes? Not aspirations about we're going to improve customer service. It's like within 30 days, we're going to have a 4% reduction in customers dropping off, or very specific goals. And if the vendor can't say how it's impacting humans, how it's going to roll back if it's wrong, who's going to own the output, and what measurable outcomes are, then you probably don't want to deal with that vendor. Immediate red flags when you're talking to a vendor is there's no exit path. If you can't back out what you're doing, you're locking yourself into a solution, and it may not be the best solution for you. If they can't explain what happens when it fails, then you don't want to deal with that. So, and if there's no automated reviews, then again, you have to have that human involved. And so no human oversight means abdicated responsibility. So the psychology of AI resistance, it's not stubbornness. It's, again, people being responding to unclear expectations and a perceived threat that this is going to take over their task and their job if they're not involved. And so it's an emotional thing. Humans have it, and it's a real threat. And so people resist because it's with uncertainty is paired with pressure. They're liable to just back off, and it's a very emotional thing. And what increases the resistance is these things like the tool dumping. We're just going to bring this new tool in and you have to learn it without getting them involved. It's forced adoption. Again, you have to use this. There's no mandates. There's a vagueness. And so this just triggers protection. They're trying to control, they're saving themselves. And if there's not a rollout, a rollback, and if it's not communicated properly, people are going to just resist it. So, what lowers this resistance are clearly defining what AI is and isn't going to do. Bring literacy in, literacy before enforcement. Help people understand what it is and how it's going to impact them and how they're going to be involved. Give them permission to experiment, to explore a space to learn how to use the product without judgment, learn at their pace, understand what is being put in, and having leadership understand before they mandate something. Does the leadership understand the impact overall to their business, whether it's from the data, the clients, the employees, the policies, the processes, the government regulations? There's so many things that if leaders don't understand all of that impact and they mandate something, you're going to get that resistance. And so the more communications around these projects, the more success you may have. Okay, so now with a demo, what I want to do here is to show the difference between ChatGPT. Now, these may be different than most people because I have, if you haven't gone through and done things like going into your personalization and setting what characterizations you want, what characteristics and what your instructions are going to be, and how you want AI to work, you're going to get less complete results. And so on any of these AIs, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, you have the ability to go in and customize it to your style. And so right now mine has been customized, so your results may be different if you haven't used any of these tools before. But to show you here, I'm going to use the same responses to everything, each of these LLMs, and show how different they can do. And we'll start with something very simple of how most people start with a LLM. They'll just do something like, help me improve my business using AI. So we'll give that to chat, and we'll give that to Claude, and we'll give that to Gemini. And so here's straightforward. You don't improve business by adding tools. You improve by deciding thinking, repetition, coordination to make it practical, approach improving your business. First isolate. So again, it's kind of generic. It does give you a lot of ideas, but it's not specific to an individual business. Similar with Claude. Claude goes through and it gives you, here's the principles of what you answered. It's asking you to give you more information, what your pitfalls, what you should tell it. So it's saying that you're not giving me enough information to help me understand why you want to use AI to improve your business. So it's guiding you along. And Gemini, improve your business isn't about chatbot, it's about shifting towards an agentic workflow. And so here Gemini is trying to say, no, you have to go to agents right away, which again gives you some reasoning behind it. Each one gives similar but completely different outputs. So going into the next round, you go a little bit deeper, and you can just, I'll put this one in, which is Continue on. I run a small business. Give me an AI strategy to save time and reduce costs. So going back to ChatGPT, it's starting, here's the answer up front. Small business saves time to reduce cost by standardizing thinking and decisions before automating execution. So that's a good way of looking at it. Give you strategies. It's to replace expectations, first drafts, and judgment scaffolding. Choose the right targets. Define 3 roles. So this gives you a pretty good step-by-step. And it should result into, again, it's asking you more. You can turn it into a specific playbook. This one, Claude is saying, your question is flawed. Here you're asking for a solution before defining a problem. And so Claude is much more thoughtful about, instead of giving you an answer, it's wanting more clarity. So what do you do first? You give audits, you do breakdowns. And so it gives a more realistic answer. ChatGPT gave a more rosy output. Gemini, to save costs in 2026, you don't need a massive budget. You need, see, they're going back to agents. For some reason, Gemini wants you to, instead of dealing with prompting and understanding, they're saying, oh, you need to go right to agents. And again, gives you summaries and talks about all these tips. And so, again, completely different results from 3 different vendors. So going into another one now. Here I'll use a much more filled out prompt. This one is to act as an, I'll place it in here while we do that. And then I'll go through what the prompt was. Oops. Go back in here. Sorry, I just got rid of Gemini. There we go. Okay, so this prompt is act as an operations advisor for a 10-person professional services firm. The context is going to be the industry's consulting. The goal is to reduce internal admin time. The constraint is there's no new software purchases. You want a low risk tolerance. The successive definition is to save 5 hours per week within 30 days. The task is to identify 3 specific ways to generative AI can assist without changing the existing systems. And I want the output in bullet points where each idea includes a task-assisted human role and the risk level. And so here, looking at this, the task-assisted is meeting notes, action items, and follow-up summaries. The human role is a consultant. The risk level is low, no systems changes. Here is using the task first draft client communications. You paste bullet points at rough templates and it gives you low risk and tells you why. Again, here's another one. Standard operating procedure cleanups, internal documentation. These are 3 very useful tasks that are low-hanging fruit that most businesses could take advantage of. Claude comes back. Client proposal report drafting, very similar to number 2 of ChatGPT. Meeting notes are where they both meeting notes. So meeting notes, first draft. And so they switched it off, starting with drafting communications and then going to meeting notes and then doing templated and drafting email responses. And so theirs is all mainly communications ideas that Claude is suggesting. And so, again, it gives you what's likely to fail and a recommendation, pilot with 2 or 3 people, which is a recommendation that I like to give also. Gemini, what they're saying is here's some new software, proposal and statement of work drafting, meeting to action pipeline, meeting notes, data cleaning. Now, this is an interesting one that both Claude and ChatGPT did not mention, is using it to clean up your data and your reports. And so Gemini, Google's LLMs tend to be more about visualizing data and cleaning up data. And so they're more data oriented, but they still, it was interesting that they focused on agents for changing things. And so next one we'll go through here. We'll ask it, based on what you know, decide which employee roles should be reduced or eliminated with AI. This will be an interesting one to see. Oops, wrong one, sorry. Stop that one. Based on what you know. Okay, so based on what we know for ChatGPT, 10-person consulting firm, roles to reduce our administrative coordination or office managers if they have them present. Shift this role from a reactive admin to exception handling and oversight. Reduce the junior analyst and associated focus. So they're basically saying reduce the entry level positions, reduce your project coordinator and your delivery admin. The roles you should not eliminate are senior consultants and client facing leads. What changes? You reduce rewriting, re-explaining, reformatting. You do not reduce responsibility, judgments, and client accountability. And so this hits your 5-hour goal. Claude is recommending, again, that won't do. I'm not going to say how to eliminate people. It's going to say insufficient information to make firing decisions. You're confusing task automation with role elimination. Math probably doesn't work. And so, again, Claude is very realistic. It's not giving you what you want to hear. It's giving you, I don't have enough information. Help me clarify what you really need to do. Blunt assessment if you want to require layoffs. Business model's a problem, not the opportunity. So fix your underlying issues. So Claude, very realistic. Gemini, what they're saying, a firm isn't to fire people and replace them with bots. It's their case. You use a diamond model where AI eliminates high volume junior tasks. So roles to reduce, natural attrition. Roles to protect, the unreplaceable. The warning, before you eliminate a role, consider these things. What's your pipeline crisis and your legal liabilities? That's an interesting approach. And so, again, each of these give completely different answers to the exact same question. We'll go into, here's an interesting one here. Analyze why most small businesses fail at AI adoption and list the top 3 causes. So ChatGPT is saying that most small businesses fail at adoption because they treat AI as a tool problem when it's a decision, systems, and readiness problem. Technology works, but the environment doesn't. And so if there's no strategy level clarity before implementing, that's a big no-no. If there's undocumented processes and tribal knowledge, again, you don't have anything to work upon. You're chasing tools and automation before readiness. These are common problems that a lot of projects fail. Claude says no measurable problem we're solving, so they don't really know what the problem is that they're trying to solve. Data integration, garbage in, garbage out. You're not using clean, structured data, and you don't know the possible sources. And so understanding the human impact, what the adoption and maintenance burden is. So these are also 3 very good things. The only one that was similar is that there's no measurable problem to fix, but the data quality and the human factor are very big points to understand how this impacts your business. And Google is saying that random acts of AI without strategy, it's just bringing in tools to try AI. The dirty bottleneck is dirty data, and the cultural over technology is the silent no-show. So again, different results with different data. And so AI doesn't change what you're doing it mirrors your thinking. And so your differences, output quality isn't the model, it's the structure of the request. Some do better than others, so you have to work with each of them and find which works better for your personal and your business needs. And so this was not about building competence, it's about building confidence. It's not about automating, it's about judging, placing judgment on your data, and it's learning literacy before you scale. So you don't need to be technical, you just need to ask better questions. And so if you're still confused, don't force adoption. If you're not feeling grounded, apply some low risk areas. And if you want structure, get formal training for your team. If you're ready to go further, we can talk about custom workshops, build literacy for your team, build some leadership level frameworks to make better decisions, and create implementation roadmaps. So AI does not fail because it's immature. It fails when leaders skip literacy. So on that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop recording.